The Crystal Cave by Mary Stewart. Book 1, The Dove, 10. Nor did it attempt to leave me when we reached home. I found on examining it that some of its wing feathers had been damaged in that hurtling crash after the ring-dove, so I mended them, as Gallopus had taught me, and after that it sat in the pear tree outside my window accepting the food I gave it and making no attempt to fly away. I took it with me the next time I went to see Gallopus. This was the first day of February, and the frost had broken the night before in rain. It was a gray, leaden day with low cloud and a bitter little wind among the rain. Drafts whispered everywhere in the palace, and curtains were fast drawn across the doors, while people kept on their woolen cloaks and huddled over the braziers. It seemed to me that a gray and leaden silence hung over the palace. I had hardly seen my grandfather since we had returned to Maridunum, but he and the nobles sat together in council for hours, and there were rumors of quarreling and raised voices when he and Camlac were closeted together. Once, when I went to my mother's room, I was told she was at her prayers and could not see me. I caught a glimpse of her through the half-open door, and I could have sworn she knelt below the holy image as she knelt below the holy image, she was weeping. But in the high valley, nothing had changed. Gallopus took the merlin, commended my work on its wings, then set it on a sheltered ledge near the cave's entrance and bade me come into the fire and get warm. He ladled some stew out of the simmering pot and made me eat it before he would listen to my story. Then I told him everything, up to the quarrels in the palace and my mother's tears. "It was the same cave, Gallopus, that I'll swear, but why? There was nothing there, and nothing else happened, nothing at all. I've asked as best I could, and Cedric has asked about among the slaves, but nobody knows what the kings discussed or why my grandfather and Camlec have fallen out. But he did tell me one thing: I am being watched by Camlec's people. I'd have come to see you sooner except for that. They've gone out today, Camlec and Alan and the rest. So I said I was going to the water meadow to train the merlin, and I came up here." Then, as he was silent, I repeated, worried into urgency. "What's happening, Gallopus? What does it all mean?" "About your dream and your finding the cavern, I know nothing. About your trouble in the palace, I can guess. You knew that the High King had sons by his first wife, Vortimer and Catigern and young Placentius. I nodded. Were none of them there at Sagontium?" "No. I am told that they have broken with their father," said Gallopus, "and Vortimer is raising troops of his own. They say he would like to be High King, and that Vortigern looks like having a rebellion on his hands when he can least afford it. The Queen's much hated, and you know that. Vortimer's mother was good British, and besides, the young men want a young king." "Camlec is for Vortimer, then?" I asked quickly, and he smiled. "It seems so." I thought about it for a little. "Well, when wolves fall out, don't they say the ravens come into their own?" I was born in September. Under Mercury, the raven was mine. "Perhaps," said Gallopus. "You're more likely to be clapped in your cage sooner than you expected." But he said it absently, as if his mind were elsewhere, and I went back to what concerned me most. "Gallopus, you've said you know nothing about the dream of the cavern, but this must have been the hand of the god." I glanced up at the ledge where the merlin sat, brooding patiently, his eyes half shut, slits of firelight. "It would seem so." I hesitated. "Can't we find out what it means?" "Do you want to go into the crystal cave again?" No, I don't. But I think perhaps I should. Surely you can tell me that." He said heavily after a few moments, "I think you must go in, yes, but first I must teach you something more. You must make the fire yourself this time, not like that," smiling as I reached for a branch to stir the embers. "Put that down. You asked me before you went away to show you something real. This is all I have left to show you. I hadn't realized. Well, let that go. It's time. No, sit still. You have no more need of books, child. Watch now." Of the next thing I shall not write. It was all the art he taught me, apart from certain tricks of healing. But as I have said, it was the first magic to come to me, and it will be the last to go. I found it easy, even to make the ice-cold fire, and the wild fire, and the fire that goes like a whip through the dark, which was just as well, because I was young to be taught such things, and it is an art which, if you are unfit or unprepared, can strike you blind. It was dark outside when we had done. He got to his feet. I shall come back in an hour and wake you. He twitched his cloak down from where it hung, shrouding the mirror, put it round him, and went out. The flame sounded like a horse galloping. One long, bright tongue cracked like a whip. A log fell down with a hiss like a woman's sigh, and then 1,000 twigs crackled like people talking, whispering, chattering of news. It all faded into a great, brilliant blaze of silence. The mirror flashed. I picked up my cloak, now comfortably dry, and climbed with it into the crystal cave. I folded it and lay down on it with my eyes fixed on the wall of crystal arching over me. The flames came after me, rank on bright rank, filling the air till I lay in a globe of light like the inside of a star, growing brighter and ever brighter till suddenly it broke and there was darkness. The galloping of hooves spanked the gravel of the Roman road. The rider's whip cracked and cracked again, but the horse was already going full tilt, its nostrils wide and scarlet, its breath like steam in the cold air. The rider was Camlac. Far behind him, almost half a mile behind now, were the rest of the young men of his party, and still farther behind them, leading his lamed and dripping horse, came the messenger who had taken the news to the king's son. The town was alive with torches, men running to meet the galloping horse, but Camlac paid no heed to them. He drove the spiked spurs into the horse's sides and galloped straight through the town, down the steep street, and into the outer yard of the palace. There were torches there too. They caught the quick glint of his red hair as he swung from the horse and flung the reins into the hands of a waiting slave. The soft riding boots made no sound as he ran up the steps and along the colonnade that led to his father's room. The swift black figure was lost for a moment in shadow under the arch. Then he flung the door wide and went through. The messenger had been right. It had been a quick death. The old man lay on the carved Roman bed, and over him someone had thrown a coverlet of purple silk. They had somehow managed to prop his jaws, for the fierce grey beard jutted ceilingwards, and a little headrest of baked clay beneath his neck held his head straight, while the body slowly froze iron hard. There was no sign, the way he lay, that his neck was broken. Already the old face had begun to fall away, to shrink, as death pared the flesh down from the jut of the nose, till it would be left simply in plains of cold candle wax. The gold coins that lay in his mouth and shut eyelids glimmered in the light of the torches at the four corners of the bed. At the foot of the bed, between the torches, stood Ninny Ann. She stood very still and upright, dressed in white, her hands folded quietly in front of her, with a crucifix between them, her head bent. When the door opened, she did not look up, but kept her eyes fixed on the purple coverlet, not in grief, but almost as if she were too far away for thought. To her side swiftly came her brother, slim in his black clothes, glinting with a kind of furious grace that seemed to shock the room. He walked right up to the bed and stood over it, staring down at his father. Then he put a hand and laid it over the dead hands clasped on the purple silk. His hand lingered there for a moment, then it drew back. He looked at Ninny Ann. Behind her, a few paces in the shadows, a little crowd of men, women, servants shuffled and whispered. Among them, silent and dry-eyed, Mael and Duach stared. Dinius, too, all his attention fixed on Camlac. Camlac spoke very softly, straight to Ninny Ann. "They told me it was an accident. Is that true?" She neither moved nor spoke. He stared at her for a moment, then, with a gesture of irritation, looked beyond her and raised his voice. "One of you answer me! This was an accident?" A man stepped forward, one of the king's servants, a man called Mabon. It's true, my lord. He licked his lips, hesitating. Camlac showed his teeth. What in the name of the devils of hell is the matter with all of you? Then he saw where they were staring, and looked down at his right hip, where, sheathless, his short stabbing dagger had been thrust through his belt. It was bloody to the hilt. He made a sound of impatience and disgust, and pulling on it, flung it from him, so that it skidded across the floor and came up against the wall with a small clang that sounded loud in the silence. Whose blood did you think? He asked, still with that lifted lip. Dear's blood, that's all. When the message came, we had just killed. I was 12 miles off, I and my men. He stared at them, as if daring them to comment. No one moved. Go on, Mabon. He slipped and fell. The man told me. How did it happen? The man cleared his throat. It was a stupid thing, sir, a pure accident. Why, no one was even near him. It was in the small courtyard, the way through the servants' rooms where the steps are worn. One of the men had been carrying oil around to fill the lamps. He'd spilt some on the steps, and before he got back to wipe it up, the king came through in a bit of a hurry. He had asked... He hadn't been expected there at the time. Well, my lord, he treads in the oil and goes straight down on his back and hits his head on the stone. That's how it happened, my lord. It was seen. There are those who can vouch for it. And the man whose fault it was? A slave, my lord. He has been dealt with. My lord, he's dead. They were all talking. There had been a commotion in the colonnade, as the rest of Camlic's party arrived and came hurrying along to the king's room after him. They had pressed into the room while Mabon was speaking, and now Alan, approaching the prince quietly, touched his arm. The news is all round town, Camlac. There's a crowd gathered outside, 1 million stories going round. There'll be trouble soon. You'll have to show yourself and talk to them. Camlac flicked his glance and nodded. Go and see to it, will you? Bran, go with him, and Ruin. Shut the gates. Tell the people I'm coming out soon, and now the rest of you out. The room emptied. Dinius lingered in the doorway, got not even a glance, and followed the rest. The door shut. Well, Ninian? In all this time she had never looked at him. Now she raised her eyes. What do you want of me? It's true, as Mabon tells you. What he didn't say was that the king had been fooling with a servant girl and was drunk, but it was an accident, and he's dead. And you with all your friends were a good 12 miles away, so you're king now, Camlac. And there is no man can point a finger at you and say he wanted his father dead. No woman can say that to me either, Ninian. I have not said it. I'm just telling you the quarrels here are over. The kingdom's yours. And now it's as Alan says. You had better go and speak to the people. To you first. Why do you stand like that, as if you didn't care either way? As if you were scared... As if you were scarcely with us here. Perhaps because it's true. What you are, brother, and what you want does not concern me, except to ask you one thing, and that is, that you let me go now. He never would, but I think you will. To St. Peter's. She bent her head. I told you nothing here concerns me any more. It has not concerned me for some time, and less than ever now. With all this talk about invasion and war in the spring, and the rumours about shifts of power and the death of kings. Oh, don't look at me like that. I'm not a fool, and my father talked to me. But you need not be afraid of me. Nothing I know or can do can ever harm your plans for yourself, brother. I tell you, there is nothing I want out of life now except to be allowed to go in peace, and live in peace, and my son too. You said one thing. That makes two. For the first time, something came to life in her eyes. It might have been fear. She said swiftly, It was always the plan for him, your plan, even before it was my father's. Surely after the day Golan went, you knew that even if Merlin's father had come riding in, sword in hand, with 3,000 men at his back, I would not go with him. Merlin can do you no harm, Camlac. He will never be anything but a nameless bastard, and you know he is no warrior. The gods know he can do you no harm at all. Even less shut up as a clerk? Even less shut up as a clerk? Camlac's voice was silky. Even less shut up as a clerk, Camlac. Are you playing with me? What's in your mind? The slave who spilt the oil, he said. Who was he? That flicker in her eyes again, then the lids dropped. The Saxon, Cedric. He didn't move, but the emerald on his breast glittered suddenly against the black, as if his heart had jumped. She said fiercely, "Don't pretend you guessed this. How could you guess it?" "Not a guess, no. When I rode in the place was humming with whispers like a smashed harp." He added in sudden irritation, "You stand there like a ghost with your hands on your belly, as if you still had a bastard there to protect." Surprisingly, she smiled. "But I have." Then, as the emerald leapt again, "No, don't be a fool. Where would I get another bastard now? I meant that I cannot go until I know he is safe from you, and that we are both safe from what you propose to do." "From what I propose to do to you? I swear you there is nothing." "I am talking about my father's kingdom, but let it go now. I told you my only concern is that St. Peter should be left in peace. And it will be." "You saw this in the crystal?" "It is unlawful for a Christian to dabble in soothsaying," said Ninian, but her voice was a little over-prim, and he looked sharply at her then, suddenly restless, took a couple of strides away into the shadows at the side of the room, then backed into the light. "Tell me," he said abruptly, "what of Vortimer?" "He will die," she said indifferently. "We shall all die some day, but you know I am committed to him now. Can you not tell me what will happen this coming spring?" "I see nothing and can tell you nothing, but whatever your plans for the kingdom, it will serve no purpose to let even the smallest whisper of murder start. And I can tell you this, you're a fool if you think that the king's death was anything but an accident. 2 of the grooms saw it happen, and the girl he'd been with. Did the man say anything before they killed him?" "Cedric? No, only that it was an accident. He seemed concerned more for my son than for himself. It was all he said." "So I heard," said Camlac. The silence came back. They stared at one another. She said, "You would not." He didn't answer. They stood there, eyes locked, while a draught crept through the room, making the torches gutter. Then he smiled and winked. The door slammed and shut behind him. A gust of air blew through the room and tore the flames along from the torches, till shadow and light went reeling. The flames were dying, and the crystals dim as I climbed out of the cave and pulled my cloak after me. It tore. The embers in the brazier showed a sullen red. Outside now, it was quite dark. I stumbled down from the ledge and ran toward the doorway. "Gallipus!" I shouted. "Gallipus!" He was there. His tall, stooping figure detached itself from the darkness outside. He came forward into the cave, his feet half bare in his old sandals, looked blue with cold. I came to a halt a yard from him, but it was as if I had run straight into his arms and been folded against his cloak. "Gallipus, they've killed Cedric." He said nothing, but his silence was like words or hands of comfort. I swallowed to shift the ache in my throat. "If I hadn't come up here this afternoon, I gave him the slip along with the others, but I could have trusted him, even about you, Gallipus. If I'd stayed, if I'd been there, perhaps I could have done something." "No, you counted for nothing, you know that." "I'll count for less than nothing now." I put a hand to my head. It was aching fiercely and my eyes swam, still half blind. He took me gently by the arm and made me sit down near the fire. "What do you say to that? What do you say?" "Why do you say that?" "A moment, Merlin. Tell me what has happened." "Don't you know?" I said, surprised. "He was filling the lamps in the colonnade, and some oil spilled on the steps, and the king slipped in it and fell and broke his neck. It wasn't Cedric's fault, Gallipus. He spilt the oil, that's all, and he was going back. He was actually going back to clean it up when it happened, so they took him and killed him." And now Camlac is king." I think I stared at him for some time, unseeing, with those dream-blinded eyes, my brain for the moment incapable of holding more than a single fact. He persisted gently. "And your mother? What of her?" What did you say?" The warm shape of a goblet was put into my hand. I could smell the same drink he had given me before when I dreamed in the cave. "Drink that. You should have slept till I wakened you. Then it wouldn't have come like this. Drink it all. As I drank, the sharp ache in my temples dulled to a throb, and the swimming shapes round me drew back into focus, and with them, thought. I'm sorry. It's all right now. I can think again. I've come back. I'll tell you the rest. My mother's to go into St. Peter's. She tried to make Camill's promise to let me go too, but he wouldn't, I think. Yes? I said slowly, thinking hard now. I didn't understand it all. I was thinking about Cedric, but I believe he's going to kill me. I believe he will use my grandfather's death for this. He'll say that my slave did it. Oh, nobody will believe that I could take anything from Camlech. But if he does shut me up in a religious house, and then I die quietly a little time after, then by that time the whispers will have worked, and nobody will raise a voice about it. And by that time, if my mother is just one of the holy women at St. Peter's and no longer the king's daughter, she won't have a voice to raise either. I cupped my hands round the goblet, looking across at him. Why should anyone fear me so, Gallopus? He did not answer, but nodded to my goblet in my hands. Finish it, then, my dear, you must go. Go? But if I go back, they'll kill me or shut me up, won't they? If they find you, they will try, I said eagerly. If I stayed here with you, nobody knows I come here. Even if they found out and came after me, you'd be in no danger. We'd see them coming up the valley for miles. Or we'd know they were coming, you and I. They'd never find me. I could go in the crystal cave. He shook his head. The time for that isn't come. One day, but not now. You can no more be hidden now than your merlin could go back into its egg. I glanced back over my shoulder at the ledge where the merlin had sat brooding still as Athene's owl. There was no bird there. I wiped the back of a hand across my eyes and blinked, not believing. But it was true. The firelit shadows were empty. Gallopus, it's gone! Yes. Did you see it go? It went by when you called me back into the cave. Which way? South. I drank the rest of the potion, then turned the goblet up to spill the last drops for the god. Then I sat down and reached for my cloak. I'll see you again, won't I? Yes, I promise you that. Then I shall come back. I promised you that already. Some day the cave will be yours, and all that is in it. Past him, in from the night, came a cold, stray breath of air that stirred my cloak and lifted the hairs on my nape. My flesh prickled. I got up and swung my cloak round me and fastened the pin. You're going, then? He was smiling. You trust me so much? Where do you plan to go? I don't know. Home, I suppose, to start with. I'll have time to think on the way there if I need to. But I'm still in the god's path. I can feel the wind blowing. Why are you smiling, Gallopus? But he would not answer that. He stood up, then pulled me toward him and stooped and kissed me. His kiss was dry and light, an old man's kiss, like a dead leaf drifting down to brush the flesh. Then he pushed me towards the entrance. Go, I settled your pony ready for you. It was raining still, but I rode down the valley. The rain was cold and small and soaking. It gathered in my cloak and dragged at my shoulders, mixed with the tears that ran down my face. This was the second time in my life that I wept. And that is the end of chapter 10.